Hi, and welcome to the Peace and Love Always podcast. It's been a while. I'm sorry. My fault. Totally my fault. I 100% take ownership for that. Let's just say that I have been doing a lot of internal work lately, and a lot of things have risen to the surface about myself, and it kind of ties into why I kind of went ghost on this podcast. And let me just explain myself. This episode is going to be centered on attachment styles and the different type of attachment styles you can have. This is something that has become very in my face lately because I work at a coffee shop and one of my coworkers is likes to psychoanalyze people. Shout out to you, shout out Hannah, you know who you are. But I have been nagging her, bugging her, on her to do a psychoanalysis of me, and she finally has given me the psychoanalysis. She got everything down to a T, I think. I don't know whether to be hurt or intrigued. But let's just say that one of the first things that she told me, and the number one thing on my psychoanalysis, is the type of attachment style I have. And it's actually funny because I didn't really know this was a thing or what it really attachment styles meant in general until her. So thank you, Hannah, actually, for fucking me up. No, just kidding. Thank you for the awareness because it's definitely something I needed. So let me dive into the four main attachment styles that a individual can have. So we have the anxious attachment style, we have avoidant attachment style, we have a disorganized attachment style, and finally, we have the one that we all want to strive for, which is a secure attachment style. But not there yet, obviously. So just to give a little rundown of each, an anxious attachment, and this is according to ChatGPT, by the way, my best friend. She is helping us determine what attachment style you have and how we can work past this together and heal to all eventually have a secure attachment style, right? An anxious attachment style craves closeness but fears abandonment, often seeks constant reassurance, and may become overly dependent in relationships. The core feeling of this attachment style is, I need others to feel secure, but I'm afraid they'll leave. Avoidant attachment styles value independence and often avoids emotional closeness. They may seem distant or emotionally unavailable. The core feeling is, I don't need others, and closeness feels uncomfortable. A disorganized attachment style desires closeness but fears getting hurt. Experiences conflicting emotions, pushes people away, then pulls them back in, often linked to trauma or inconsistent caregiving. The core feeling is, I want love but I don't trust it. This attachment style is kind of a mix of avoidant and anxious. Just want to throw that in there. And finally, a secure attachment style is comfortable with intimacy and independence, trusts others, communicates effectively, and handles conflict in healthy ways. The core feeling is, I am worthy of love and others can be trusted. The attachment style that Hannah and I have really come to terms with, that I do possess, is a avoidant attachment style. But let me take you through the self-awareness and introspection I have done in regards to these attachment styles and how they have been fucking with my everyday life. I would definitely consider myself to be an independent person. I am definitely someone who has grown to fully depend on myself and fully be rooted in myself. And obviously, it has gone to an extreme to where I do avoid emotional closeness and I do fear vulnerability and fear that emotional intimacy. Maybe people can have different reasonings if you're an avoidant. your reasonings could be different than mine, but for me, I think one of the main reasons as to why vulnerability is something that is so difficult to me is because I kind of grew up not really practicing being vulnerable with your emotions and how you feel and checking in with your family and all that. And I did kind of adapt a mindset of not wanting to burden other people with my emotions and not wanting to put that responsibility and that role onto them when it's what I'm feeling in the first place. I could also say that maybe my emotional needs weren't really met as a kid just because, again, we didn't really practice vulnerability, unfortunately, and that is no one's fault. It's also linked into how my parents were raised, and I can definitely say now that we have grown from that so much and we now are much more open and much more in touch with how we feel and expressing what we feel. But, you know, living that way now and not living that way for the past, I don't know, 20 years, right? It's hard to let go of some of those old beliefs and those old patterns and try to flip that. It's not impossible, but it's definitely something that does not happen overnight. Avoidants also often suppress and dismiss their own emotions, which is 100% something I truly do, unfortunately, participate in. I think, okay, I struggle with vulnerability. So before I filmed this episode, my thought process was let me come on this episode and be vulnerable so that I can start to open myself up, be more open to being vulnerable because, yes, being vulnerable is a beautiful thing. And who knows, maybe you can identify what attachment style you have and try to work on becoming a secure attachment style with me, and we can grow together because obviously shit is not clicking right now. But I do often suppress or dismiss my own emotions because of feeling like they don't really have a say or aren't really valid enough or important enough. Opening up, the thought of opening up to someone and them seeing who I am and then deciding that they don't like who I am is like the worst thing I think I would ever have to go through. And in my mind, I think it's just better to not go through that. But it's also hard because I am someone who is a hopeless romantic and I deeply wish for love and crave love. But at the same time, I'm afraid of getting hurt and I'm afraid of feeling rejected. So I just sit in my room all day. It takes a lot for me to open up to someone, much less a boy or a man or whoever, right? I can't even do that well with friends. I can't imagine doing that with like a romantic interest. But I also think that since my beliefs in my goals and my purpose and what makes me me is so strong that another person just wouldn't be able to fathom how deeply I feel about these things because they're not in my head. They're not me. They're never going to be me. So it's kind of like, why even bother? You won't get it. But at the same time, it's not my job to make everyone understand who I am as a person. It's not my job to form everyone's perception of me to be the way I want it to be. That's just not fair to me. That's not fair to that person either. And I have to be okay with feeling misunderstood. I have to be okay with being vulnerable and having that risk of being shut down or being turned away from. But that's okay. That just means that my heart opened itself up and put itself out there, and the right people will see it, and the right people will appreciate it and value it. I was never someone who thought that being vulnerable was a weakness. I always admired vulnerability, especially growing up, because again, it's not something that was really practiced when I was growing up. But I guess the reason why I chose to suppress and reject the emotions that I feel is because I felt silly in what I was feeling sometimes, especially when it came to boys. I also felt like there were more important matters at hand. Like, why the fuck am I just gonna lay in my bed and be sad when I can go fucking, I don't know, make money over here, right? But that's also not fair to me to suppress all of those emotions that I was feeling and all of those reasonings that I had for feeling those emotions, right? Like, I'm only human. I'm just a girl. Let me fucking be sad if I want to be sad, all right? There's nothing wrong with being sad for a day or two. I understand that now. But back then, it was really hard for me to fucking take a chill pill. But learning from that and learning from the consequences that obviously came from that, I realized that any emotion you feel is just a sign that you're human, and that's life. You have to feel these emotions, because the more you suppress them, the more they'll bottle up and come up in different ways. So now I really try to validate how I feel and not gaslight myself. I try to acknowledge what I'm feeling in the moment, literally sit with feelings, like literally turn your phone off and just lay there and be like in your head for a second and identify what it is you're actually feeling in that moment and what you're overthinking. That's something that I would never have ever allowed myself to do. But it's crazy, just like sitting in silence, sitting with your thoughts, feeling the way you're feeling, and knowing that it's okay to feel that way. You're a human experiencing human emotions. Those things are inevitable, and that just makes you you. What matters is how you choose to respond to those emotions. So becoming emotionally attuned with what I'm feeling is what I'm now trying to practice in order to resolve my avoidant attachment style, because it's bad. It was bad. But there are some patterns that I have noticed within myself that I'm sure you can probably identify in yourself when you turn the tables and start to introspect yourself, right? I know for me, one of the things that I do and I catch myself doing sometimes that I'm now trying to stop is it's hard for me to receive anything from anyone, much less freaking love. So, for example, if someone gives me a compliment, I would always accept the compliment, but then try to give them a compliment as well, because I didn't want to seem like shallow. And I was like, okay, like I'll receive this, but let me give you a compliment as well. So, we're both getting complimented. And yes, that's a kind thing to do, but it's also like learning to sit back and just accept what is being given to you without thinking that you need to give something in return. So now when someone gives me a compliment, even if I don't really agree with them sometimes, I just smile and wave, smile and nod and say thank you and feel the discomfort, but move on. Give my little grace and then move on. Not give something back to them because they gave something to me. So just learning to receive the things that are being given to me. Another thing I also noticed about myself is, damn, we're really getting very vulnerable here, okay? So, shit. Take this as your sign to do the same thing with yourself, right? Open up a journal and start journaling about your attachment style and your patterns and what you can do to resolve it and how it's affecting your life and yada yada yada, because girl, I'm like literally posting this, blasting it on the internet, so you should probably do this. You could do the same. You could do the same. Okay, learn from me. But another thing that I noticed within myself is when someone asks me a personal question, right? Like in regards to like what are my goals, what I want to do with my life, yada yada yada, those type of questions, I instantly deflect, right? Deflect the question, girl. I'm like, girl, act like I didn't hear them or something. Like, I just avoid, abort. And then I literally catch myself telling myself in my head, I'm like, you know what? If they ask again after I already deflected this question like 3 times, I'm like, you know what? If they ask one more time, I'll tell them. I'll open up and I'll tell them. They never ask again because I've already avoided that question like 3 or 4 times. They're probably like, all right, this bitch does not want to open up, so like, why am I gonna keep pushing her? Why don't I just open up the first time? Why don't I just express to them what those things are the first time that someone asks, right? They're asking because they're interested. And that's another thing too, is like, I feel like when someone asks those things, they're not really interested because of past quote unquote traumas where I have told people the answers to those questions and their reaction is not what I wanted to see. So I just stopped. But that's not fair to me because I'm not being authentic to myself and I'm not expressing and being true to who I am. So no more of that shit. All right. That's another thing that I'm very much learning to fix because. So with this whole attachment style thing, I was curious to know if this was not only subjected to be in relationships, but if it also shows up in other areas of your life. And according to ChatGPT, it absolutely does. Which the more I've reflected on, the more I have seen to be very, very much true. Lately with this podcast specifically, I haven't been really feeling compelled to work on it at all, to film an episode. I mean, it makes sense because since I'm an avoidant, right, vulnerability is not my strongest suit. And coming on here and talking about these things that I want to talk about, a part of me has to open up. A part of me has to be vulnerable, obviously. A part of me has to kind of like put my business out there for a little bit and then show you how my brain works and how I take this information that I've gone through, analyze it together, and then hope that you can do the same and then we grow together, right? Like that was my goal with this podcast. How the hell am I going to do that when I can't even do the first step, which is come on here and be vulnerable? And it makes sense. It ties in with the avoidant attachment style. It's hard for me to contribute to something because I feel too vulnerable. Another thing also is if this were, or probably when, because, people are rude online, when this becomes criticized, right, once it gains a little bit of traction, I can be prone to shutting down because I'm an avoidant, or I can struggle to ask for help or feedback because I'm an avoidant and I just rely on myself and not others. So I can definitely see how these attachment styles can intertwine in every area of your life, pretty much, and not be limited just to relationships. Another thing that ChatGPT brought to my attention is the relationship you have with yourself and how this attachment style in particular can affect you. Over intellectualizing. This is has literally been me the past couple of months. I've been analyzing life more than I have been living life. And I've basically been distracting myself instead of feeling. Instead of feeling what I'm feeling, I've been in my head analyzing, trying to make sense of it. And obviously, that ties back into the avoidant, to the vulnerability, to not wanting to open yourself up and open your heart back up. Another thing is being hyper independent. And here it says, on here in ChatGPT, it says, I don't need anyone mindset. Bro. Bro. It's actually so funny that it says that, because I used to really, really adapt that mindset. And I remember one time I got to a point to where I truly was alone. And this was like not even just in a romantic setting, but also platonically. I remember one day I was sitting in my room and I was just, laying on my bed, staring at the ceiling in my head, feeling all of these things. And I wanted an outlet. I wanted someone to talk to in that moment, which for me was a lot because, again, I had this mentality of I don't need anyone, right? I just need myself. And laying there in that moment and wanting someone to talk to and not having anyone to talk to, not feeling comfortable enough to reach out to people about what I was feeling in that moment, that was a moment I'll never forget, because that was a moment that I truly, truly felt so alone. I had never felt so alone in my life ever. And that really changed my belief and my perspective on this mentality and on how valuable social connections are. We as humans, we need connection. We need other people. We need those moments in our life, because obviously we can't survive on our own. But I'm glad I went through that, because that really shaped a belief I had about that mentality of I don't need anyone. And it really put into perspective just how much I had love for my friends and the people that were in my life at that time. And it really pushed me to strengthen those relationships, because I needed them, or else a bitch would have gone crazy. And finally, ChatGPT says that avoidant people often come across... Okay, let me say that again, because why did I sound like that? Avoidant people often come across as strong, independent, or chill, but it can be a way to protect against being hurt, disappointed, or let down. Girl, this is me to a T. Actually, let me read to you what my coworker wrote on my psychoanalysis, because I don't know, I was just getting gagged left and right, to be honest. She pretty much said, I can't find it, okay, but she pretty much said that I care more than I let on, I think is how she worded it. I seem like I don't care, but I care more than I think. And, well, if that ain't the truth. The final thing I'm going to say in regards to this and this whole freaking attachment style thing is I have very high expectations when it comes to myself, love, this damn podcast, right? And one of the things that I just have high expectations in general in regards to everything I've noticed about myself. And when you have those high expectations and they're not met, you are constantly let down or disappointed, which at times can feel so wrong, because It can be as something as simple as wanting this thing and getting something else that is just as nice, but it's not what you envisioned, and you feel let down because you didn't get that thing, even though you got something else. Does that make sense? Like, are you catching on? That's just, are you lost in how my brain works? Because sometimes I'm lost in how my brain works too. But it's difficult to explain because it's like, it's not, oh my God. Other people are not consciously choosing to let me down because they're not aware of the expectations I have. They're doing the best they can, and as fucked up as it sounds, it's just not enough for me. And so I'm let down. And I guess in a way, I have started to repress those emotions because I felt guilty and I felt bad for feeling that in the first place, which is why I can probably come across as so chill and so like I don't really give a fuck, when in reality I have given a fuck, too many fucks, and the fucks have not been met. So now I'm just like, no expectations, chill, laid back, whatever. But obviously it's just a defense mechanism, and it's just a way that I'm choosing to protect myself by not putting myself in a position to where I can be let down or disappointed or hurt by not receiving the things that I wanted to receive, and not putting that burden onto other people and making them feel like shit. So I just choose to internalize it and deal with the aftermath now because fuck. But I'm just going to end on this positive note because I feel like I've kind of been like going off. It's absolutely possible to heal a attachment style, any attachment style. If you don't believe me, ask ChatGPT, because that is what ChatGPT is telling me, and I'm going to choose to believe that. With the stuff that we go through in life, of course, not everyone is going to always have a secure attachment style. And not everyone is always going to have the same attachment style, right? Like I am a avoidant right now, but who knows, maybe 5 years from now, I could turn into an anxious one. I could be a secure one. I could be any, right? Depending on what you go through in life. That's just life. Life is just about going through experiences that we want to go through or don't want to go through, and choosing to respond to them in the ways we see best. If you are interested in healing any attachment style that you have, I would definitely recommend to first identify what attachment style you have, and then research, figure out why you could have that attachment style and what is the next step to healing it. I mean, unless you want to stay that way, but shit. Good luck. Good luck. And if you're an avoidant like me, well, let's heal this together, girl. Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of this shit. I don't like this shit. It sucks. Keeps you in a little box. Come across as this cold-hearted bitch, when in reality there's this lover girl inside of me who is just hidden under my cold, cold, cold heart right now. But she will come out one day. And I can't wait for that. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, listening to me rant, be a bit vulnerable with you. I don't know when the next one will come out, right? Stay tuned, I guess. I plan to just release episodes for now when the time feels right, and hopefully build more momentum and then get into a place to where I can release an episode weekly. But for now, I'm going to listen to my body and I'm going to feel what feels right. I'm going to start healing this goddamn avoidant attachment style. But again, thank you so much for listening to this. I love you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.